Everyone. I am here sharing my PowerPoint on the Facebook dilemma. So I'm going to start off with the beginning of Facebook. It was started by Mark Zuckerberg. It was meant as a social source for college students that could meet online and maybe share experiences. Facebook began to spread by college students at Harvard. Mark Zuckerberg had a vision of everyone in the world being connected, and he specifically wanted to be the one to be able to do this. The original group that worked for Facebook wasn't very diverse. It was mostly Ivy League kids in their 20s. In every interview I watched of them, they seemed very laid back. They didn't seem to have a real grasp on, the business end of things or how they should market. Mark had an interesting approach. He actually said he'd rather do now and apologize later, which I feel like came back to bite him. I feel like people reference that in regards to what happened later with Facebook. In interviews that were conducted, like I said, they seemed very careless, laid back. They didn't seem concerned about any possibility of harm with their site or exploitation in any way. Facebook's goal was worldwide expansion. They wanted to be available to everyone. They also allowed almost anything to be posted, as long as you followed a specific set of guidelines that were pretty laid back. They didn't want to infringe on freedom of speech. They relied on public common sense and decency, which not everybody has, so I feel like they should have had a stricter guidelines page. Internet sites cannot be held liable because of what users post. So Facebook's like button was created in 2009, and it lets the company know and understand what the users are interested in. Facebook used an algorithmic calculator that had the job of determining which news stories would be the most interesting for the user, which they would then display first in the newsfeed. So basically, if somebody liked a lot of things about pets or dogs or cats, maybe they would show news stories about pet stores. So the Facebook revolution. Wael Gohanem, I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. I wrote this a while ago, was working for Google when he came across brutality against Egyptian people by their government on Facebook. So he decided to make a Facebook page in protest of the way the Egyptian citizens were being treated by their government. After seeing how much popularity his page had gained, because it reached a good number of people, he also created a public event that called for a revolution to bring down the Egyptian regime. The president then, after the revolution, actually ended up stepping down. After the president stepped down, there were riots and political clashes in Egypt. Social media actually encouraged the political clashes. Though people were insulted for having different views, it caused a number of tensions between individuals. And this was really the first time that social media was used to affect political change in the world. So Facebook originally was used to bring people together, which it was great that they decided to, have a page, and it ended up bringing people together to fight against a corrupt government, but it ended up doing more harm because of the riots and political clashes that then happened. So the consequences of what happened in Egypt were unintended by Facebook, but the site definitely should have paid attention and started to limit what people could post. The company was extremely understaffed. Like I said, those that were running it, who were in charge of judgment calls, like maybe limiting what people could post, revising their policies, they were in their 20s, and there should have been professionals that could have helped them make those tough decisions, since they didn't really know or seem to know what they were doing. So the privacy policies, Facebook officials were downplaying the extent of the personal data the site was collecting. The site collects its data when the app is being used, and even when it isn't, through tracking pixels. So they have access to personal messages, GPS data, your last known location. And Facebook actually sold the information that it had collected from people to data broker companies that sold the data to other companies without Facebook knowledge, which led to misuse of the data. They also shared consumer personal data with third-party developers, game and app developers, probably so that game companies could advertise to the right crowd. Facebook's ad revenue spiked. They were clearly worried more about the money than they were worried about their consumers or their information. So I wrote that twice. My apologies. Facebook eventually changed their private policies due to public backlash and legal inquiries and gave users the ability to change their private settings. So if somebody didn't want the data collection as much, like by games, then they could go into those settings and edit, which in my opinion should have came a lot sooner since they were doing this without people's knowledge. So the 2016 election, Facebook allowed fake news and rumors to spread on the site because they were so understaffed and they didn't think their algorithm had any issues, although it could be used to spread fake news. Wow, spread fake news. So over the past couple years, I have even noticed an extreme amount of fake news that's spread, and people post it and share it, and they don't even know it's fake news half of the time. And many people got their election information from Facebook because, it's an easy app on your phone. You just pick it up and you can, just glance through it on your way to work maybe. So fake news stories were actually created by Russia in an attempt to influence the 2016 election results. Americans were seeing news stories that may not have been true, and this could have swayed the election results. So Russia was going in, creating these fake stories and trying to influence the election, and they very well might have succeeded. Also, companies could pay to target specific audiences and show them specific ads on Facebook. And there was an example in the Frontline video. Donald Trump's digital media director actually did this. He paid to target specific audiences. He sent specific ads to them that he would think people would be interested in. Also, there has been a lot of hyper-partisan Facebook pages, and these have gotten an extreme amount of engagement, and they still do, even though they could be spreading misinformation. I have seen tons of fake news shared by these sites, and pages like the New York Times get far less engagement, even though that's a true news source, and hyperpartisan Facebook is probably run by a 40-year-old with no political experience that's just sharing how much they hate immigrants. So Facebook claimed they actually had no impact on the election. Mark Zuckerberg actually said this himself, which I was really surprised they were even willing to say that publicly. So overall, my opinion, Facebook definitely started out with good intentions, and I still believe there are some good qualities. Being able to share your photos with family and friends you might not see all the time, sharing updates, being able to chat with people. Those are all good things, but they were completely unprepared for the outreach that Facebook had. People who had experience with media or managing companies should have been involved in the company as Facebook grew so they could guide the 20-year-olds that were running the site, because they didn't know what they were doing. They were in over their heads. They probably should have asked for help, but they didn't. And I do believe there should be stricter rules for Facebook users to prevent the spread of false information. My question is here, and I'm also probably going to post it on the discussion board. Do you think Facebook should be held accountable for fake news on their website, or should people be able to post whatever they want to, even if the information is false? If so, what action do you think they should be taking to limit fake news? Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments.